since you guys were talking about organization, I realized that in Audible, you can click when you hear like a passage that is interesting, you can click and make a note, which I still trying to like figure out how to make a note while I'm driving, but
yeah, I'm aware of it, and I did it a few times, but I'm driving, I can't figure this out while I'm driving, and that's when I listen to most of the books.
Wow.
So
there's functionality in several podcast apps that, we lost Miro. Podcast apps that will allow you to push the button, and it will also tag that, go into this function, and then go into Notion, right? So then you can go back and if nothing else, you just hit it, and now you know there's something here that I need to listen to.
Mm. But when you click, is it recording the 10, 20 seconds before, or is it starting to recording? This haven't figured out.
Well, yeah, and that's obviously the thing, and I think it varies somewhat. But to me, one of the ideas of this is, we've got the thing we're looking at. We want to collect the pertinent bits, but there's a step after that, and that is processing them, right? And that would be, okay, in this section of this podcast, there's something that I want to listen to. Oh, now here are my notes on that. So that's why I don't care like where it is so much, because that's a thing I'm looking for and processing, and then adding to my notes. And Jared, thank you so much for being interested in this, because I spent a couple hours just sort of playing in mine and connecting. It's so, one of the best things about this is, like, I went through and I had Neville Goddard references all over, and I connected all of them up, and I forgot. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, and so thank you so much for doing what you've done already. It's been awesome.
This is what I've done already. The Book of Wisdom.
The Book of Wisdom.
And when I stopped doing it because of time, but when I was first reading all these books, I always read them with a highlighter and with those packet of those little like page markers.
Yeah.
And
love those. Love them.
Yeah. And so I have books with just, filled up with page markers. And then I would, when I was done, I would sit down. It would take me a while. And every highlighted section I would transfer inside here.
Wow.
And I stopped because I'm like, that's just too antiquated. Like it's very cool, but it's hard. There's no reference points,
Well, and this is the nice thing, is it's self-referential. Then you process it, and then you can create your own notes off of it and point it back to the original texts. And one of the cool things is, if you're doing it from Kindle, you click on, and I think maybe the podcast as well, you click on the reference that you made in the Kindle in the database, and it opens up the freaking book, so that you can see it in all its context if you need to, and then or you can see where you've linked into your note. And there's a thing called Zettelkasten. It stands for a slip box, and basically this guy wrote a huge, just prodigious creator. And what he did was, he had a reference note, which is that note that will come in from Kindle, and then would take each individual idea and distill it on a single slip, like an index card, and then link that to Stoicism and Neville Goddard and whatever else, and then creating this web where suddenly you've got a whole idea, content, whatever, that you're pulling from these 8 slips. And so this system, a lot of people use that in this system. I haven't totally wrapped my head around it, but from an aspirational side,
it sounds amazing.
It could be fiddly.
Well, yeah, because like I like the idea of, all right, highlight this, and then beside it on the page with a different pen, I write down the thought that it generated. Yes. And like you're saying, if you're reading Neville Goddard, it can also be connected to something completely different, that just, well, in the flow of it, the thought comes.
There you go.
And so I love that aspect. But then I connect it with the podcast that I shared. So like, I don't know why there's something flashing.
Yeah.
But like a digital Kindle is completely different than the book as far as the energy of it. Doesn't mean that the energy of the content is still the same. But there was a life that went into this compared, you have to take care of it. There's a responsibility versus the Kindle. And so I'm trying to work through that process, because like I have in my bag, I think I have 5 different books right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weight. The Kindle would be so nice to have it all right there and access to, a library of books
But
with the notes.
I'm exactly like you, Jared. Like I need the physical book. I listen to it. And then when I'm moving and sometimes I actually highlight on my paper book. But I love being able to see my book when I'm in the living room, like reconnect some thoughts to seeing the physical book. But then for note keeping, it's really not ideal.
Yes.
And so, one of the things is here, I have 200 books on this.
Yeah.
Right. And I can go and look all my things. And I have this on this and this. Right? Because I love books. I love books. But this is what I go and reference, or what I look up stuff, or just cuddle. Right? There you go. But this is where I'm getting my truths and my power and my information and my creation. And so I really had to not force, because I don't do force anymore, but I did have to kind of embrace the power and the energy of the outcome more than the frequency and the energy of the book itself, right? And so, I still, like, I would prefer to read this than this, but I recognize that in doing this, I am able to own it more in here, because I'm going through these things. One of the coolest things that it does is it sends me an email every day with the things from different books that I've highlighted. Like, oh man, yeah, I should go back and look at all the highlights for that book or whatever else. And it just keeps, and once you get, and even with the database, I'm noting that I'm getting to a certain level of momentum where I have things to connect. And when you start doing that, then it's kind of giggly.
So what comes to
you? Where are you?
Yeah, I wanted to say hi to Marie. Yeah, sorry, Jared. What a beautiful picture, by the way.
Faking it. She's not even here.
Oh, but she looks perfectly fine. Look at how gorgeous she is.
You're sweet.
It's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's a while back, but it's still one of my favorites. So it does for today too. Hey, everybody.
How are you?
Good to hear you. I'm okay. I'm just like extremely tired since a couple of days. I don't know what's up, but it's just like I've got work to do, but no, my body wants to lie down and sleep. So yeah, I did go for a run this morning, and in the lake it was 0 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much this is in Fahrenheit.
30.
That was cool.
32,
that was cool.
Yes.
Yep.
Your 0 is 32 for some reason on ours. I mean, I think that's the reason you guys did yours. Yeah.
So no, I'm generally good. I'm just like super, super tired and sort of sleepy.
Okay. Cool.
So are you listening to your body and actually resting and sleeping?
Yep, that's a good plan. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's nice to see you.
Mm-hmm. Miro tried, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and if I was where he is, I would probably try about that level too. Like, I appreciate that. It's beautiful. I've been to Dubrovnik, and it's a beautiful city. It's just gorgeous. It's just, they actually, what is it? Game of Thrones filmed a lot of stuff in Dubrovnik.
Really?
You can actually see, yeah, you can actually see some of the site. I actually took pictures of, like, from where I took the picture, the camera was shooting scenes. So it was kind of cool. Jared, what were you saying? When you said the thought comes to mind when we were talking about databases.
The interesting aspect of you holding power versus force in a Kindle, and like the energy that the book Power versus Force, that these books, like, I touch them and I vibrate different. Like, they are amazing. And if you get that whole stack of them, like, I want them in my presence. Like, it's just, I want them there. And especially with the highlighted, with my essence added to it. And so then the thought was, does the Kindle vibrate as well?
I think that's partially up to you, first of all. But I would imagine it would be hard to vibrate as much as those books do. And
I would like to. Yeah, I would like to test it and find out.
I love books. Love books.
I think the new way of processing books is you get the Audible, you get the physical version and the Kindle. I mean, I'm just like one out because I always get the Kindle, the Audible and the physical book. But it's true that I feel outdated when I like highlight. I'm like, how am I going to go back to this?
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, you cannot put the notes with the highlight. So I didn't think that you would actually convince me, but I'm like this close to be convinced to get a Kindle now.
Me too.
Yeah, one of the things that the approaches that I do is I want to just sometimes read this just to enjoy it and not distill it, learn it, embody. Like, there's two levels of reading that I do. One is just to sort of browse through and read a cool bit, or jumping in something that really, one of the things I came across, and Miro suggested this movie, it's called The Big Blue.
It's my oh my God, it's my favorite movie in the whole world. It was like the scene where they are having sex. Like, first of all, her body.
I haven't seen the movie. Don't ruin it for anybody.
You haven't seen The Big Blue?
No, and it's funny
because
Gail is the second person that I've mentioned this to, and guess what the first person said? That's my favorite movie of all time. And the reference is that they did the energy scale of a bunch of movies. And The Big Blue was the high, it was at 700 or some ridiculous number like that. And I'm like, okay, I added that to my resource thing in my database. But that's the sort of thing like that. This is valuable to me as a book, right? I'm not going into my Kindle and looking the index and the whatever. And so the number of books where I have the Audible, the book, and the Kindle is the number of books that I can get that have all three. Right. I went and bought a book your mind, body, whatever, your Czech guy, Paul Czech, his book.
Yep. How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy.
There you go. That one. And it doesn't have a Kindle book. I'm like, so I had to buy the book, just the book, and I will highlight it and underline it and then go through some process of distilling that out. But these are for me to touch and then enjoy and love and smell and taste and all of those external things. And the internal things come from here.
Interesting. I have to say, Paul Czech scares me. He has too many abs. He's a little too young for me.
At like 56 or something.
Yeah, he's just, something is weird about him. It's just too much.
He is much deeper than the average person.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying, I lost a bunch of weight back several years ago, and anything you look up, any diet has like 19 people saying you will die if you do that diet, and 19 people that says this is the only way to live to doing that diet. And like, who do you listen to and where do you go? And it's such a muddled place. So to get a recommendation, especially somebody will say, this is one of the few people I can listen to these days, from you, Jared. I appreciate that. I'm not sure I'm ready for those core, I went and watched the video about HCL, or what is it? HLC. The first one, and he says, I created this one because everybody was taking the second one and they hadn't ever didn't embody it at all. And so like this first one is for you to do 6 months of this thing. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe I should have a little idea of what it is before I even sign up the course. So thank you for the beginning of my journey. I appreciate it. I don't think I can join you in jumping into the middle of yours, but it's much appreciated because it's a place I recognize, and I love the holistic thing. So that's very cool. The book will be here today. Jump on it. And then I'm going to go watch The Big Blue.
I think it was I watched it probably 100 times, and there's a really central scene at one point, and I think it was kind of the equivalent of like porn type, like at my level, yeah, fast.
It came out like 95, right? Like it's something like that, I think, right?
I don't remember.
A while ago.
Yeah. Have you seen it, Jared?
Yes.
I'm the only one that has not seen it. So
because of Power versus Force.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's just the way I think it really, and he, the diver produced that movie. So it's why like the energy of the movie, you really can feel what it feels to push your body so far to go down into the sea. Like you just feel it, like you're with them.
I have never been a deep diver competitor or whatever, but I was a big time swimmer as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I really kind of get the idea of kind of shutting your body down, getting everything, all the oxygen. I mean, I've been in that spot. We would used to work to see, can you go 25 yards, 35, hit the end and come back, with on one breath. And you sort of get into a very, it's the Zen place, right? It's when you get in the flow, you're just at kind of this peace of doing it, and it's truly magical. So I'm really looking forward to the movie. So thank you, Power versus Force, and Miro who mentioned it. So what else do people have today? Oh, and Gail, thank you so much for your question, by the way. Your question about tools versus flow, for lack of a better term around it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're like in deep diving, like learning, then you just want to give it all right away, like before digesting it. And yeah, and it feels, I think my vision of coaching is really much more the intuitive side. This is where and thank you for the reflection, Jared, on, what is it that you like? I was like, oh yeah, like I feel really proud of myself where when I say something out of the blue and they're like, oh my gosh, how did you know I want to live in Australia? I'm like, I don't know. But, just as a joke, maybe you should just move to Australia. Oh, are you kidding me? Like, I've been thinking about it for 6 months. It's like, okay. So those moments, because, but you don't know how they come. Like for me, there's no prediction of, will it be there? Or, and so it's, but I think even with the intuition, the more you learn, the more it blends into using the tools that are helpful and mixing up your own intuition as well.
I'm Gail. I just want to first honor what you said, and secondly say that that's my joy in life, right? Like, I mean, that's my joy in life, is to hear the thing, let somebody share their week or whatever it is, and or what's going on, and they'll often name this went really well, and these 3 things were issues, and then say something else, and you go, oh, this is the thing right here, and to be able to bring that out. I think fantasize, part of my reason for wanting to, for lack of a better term, data dump somebody, right? Because to a degree, that's what I learned. A cool thing. Here you go. Blah 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 blah. Right. And part of that is from lack. And that's because I learned this cool thing and I'm going to forget it by next week, and I don't have a way to track it and whatever. And that's part of what I'm trying to do. All of this started with Freedom Academy. Is that what he called it?
Freedom Teacher Academy.
Freedom Teacher. Yeah, Freedom
FTA.
Teacher. Right, Freedom Teachers got FTA. In that at the beginning of it anyway, he threw so many tools. And I was like, how do I do what? Right. And so I've been kind of on a search for a way that I can put something away and not lose it. So just to circle back at that. But thank you so much for that, because it reinforced what I was doing and just allowed me to kind of embrace it again. It's magical when you have a student that meets you there so that you can do that. And that's it's one of the things I've discovered is it's really co-creation, and that's the beauty of it, because you can be as present and magical as you want, and if the student isn't there with that student mentality, open and present themselves, you're handing them tools.
What would you guys advise of? I feel the being present, either in a coaching session or just if you want to be extra present for a situation, a conversation, or a family moment, or whatever it is. What would you say is your practice, or to create that state of being very present?
Jared, go, or else I will. I'm tired of talking. You talk, or maybe Maria something.
Ask your question a different way.
Okay. We've all probably noticed with our experience that moments where we were very present and where intuition or the voice can come easier, where we're not resisting to it. And looking back at it, there's probably a preparation to that state. What is, from your experience, the best preparation that you know can predictably make you in this present moment?
So for me, ego is the opposite of that. So I have to drop myself. And the, say, triggers or cues that I would use to do that would be, one, breath. If I follow my breath for a few moments, it usually releases a lot of baggage. 2, journal. And 3, literally like remind myself that it's not about me.
I will share that I think the exact same thing, but a totally different way. And I generally will review my notes from the last 2 calls with someone. And then I kind of go through a process of who do I need to be for this person, for this session. And a lot of times that doesn't vary a lot, but that the person I need to be is the person that Jared described. And then I will look at what are my intentions for this meeting, and who I need to be, and what are my intentions. Take me out of me, because it's about who do I need to be for them, and my intentions are for them. And so that gets me out of, what I want for lunch or whatever else is going on. And I find that stopping before I do a call with a client or this or anything else, and saying, who do I need to be and what are my intentions in this space? And that brings me really present. And I generally will stop, and I have a certain tingle.
The spidey tingle.
It is the spidey senses tingle, where you just get present. And it's almost like it's weird, but I feel like my ears radiate. Like, and I think it's
weird.
It is very weird, but I think it's an outcropping of getting present in meditation. Very often they'll tell you to listen to the air conditioning or just hear the nature and not comment on it, but just allow it to be. And so my natural state is, when I want to get present, I just kind of open my ears to what's going on around me and be present in the space. So I'm bringing you the things that make sense, plus the weird things there.
This thing with the ears, for me, I visualize like it's an opening, and I see like a line up and down, and it's like boom, like it's like if I had antennas that would like connect to vibration or something. So weird.
God, I love this group.
Well, and then those ears are being used as a catalyst or a trigger of releasing programs that you have running that would inhibit the connection of source.
Oh, I like that. So it's a two-way. It's like you bring in the present moment, and you remove the ego and the brain part, the logical part, maybe.
And to me, that's the last place. I've already planted the seed of what's going on in the past with the past two things, and what I'm intending for this thing with that. And then it goes. And it's the most fun in the world.
Yeah. So another way of putting it is, you're setting the intention, you're reviewing the notes, you're running through these new programs that serve the purpose of all this, whatever they are. And that is it Einstein's, that's the 5% of the intellect. That's the 5% of your consciousness that you are able to, of course it varies per person, but then what you want to do is to tap inside that 95% of the subconscious. And that, of course, is what you do in meditation, true meditation. And that's where the magic is. Where that you're moving to Australia comes from.
Yeah. I love that.
It's where that flow of it thing.
I love that question, Gail. And I was just pondering if there's something I can add to that. And one thing that came up is, but it's often after a situation where I noticed after the fact that maybe I wasn't, as present. And it's not about just coaching situations, but any life situations, right? And I often then sort of, trace it back to a moment where I assumed something, or I made a conclusion about what would be the solution to a particular problem without really, and in that moment started to stop being present, basically, and didn't sort of go with just now and the flow, but sort of went into one very set direction, which somehow I had decided had to be the correct one. But that isn't always the case, right? So I get something around sort of being able to, and that's something I often, hope I will do better next time, basically, but being able to catch that moment when there is something, that a conclusion or a sort of a strong point of view that sticks me in the direction and keeps me from being present to what's happening now.
I resonate with that a lot. Like I have a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, I missed something. But then I feel that there might be a way to go back in time in a way, or to just share that thought with a person. Be like, hey, I know we just had this talk, but here's something that came up later on. Because it's of value. Like sometimes you get insights later on because the pressure is off. You're like, okay, I had this big discussion or this important session, and somehow your ego is like down to relax and it's like, okay, cool, I did it. Oh, but here's what I missed. And like noticing all those moments where you assume something and you were not really present, but now you're all chilled and you're like, oh, like I need to share that again.
Yeah, I think there's tremendous value in it. To use what Jared's thing is that, you got to let go of the programs, and get the present. And that's not always possible. But I am a big believer of if you can't get it in real time, get it in retrospect. And even to just recognize it and confirm with your subconscious that that's the place I want to be. Right. And to look at it and recognize, oh, and to me, that's one of the big, I think Abraham Hicks called it transitions intending or session intending. And I did the program about it called Finish Strong, where you look at when you're moving from one thing to the next. And how do and my sort of thesis there was that finishing something well is actually a good beginning to the next thing. And it creates a wonderful momentum. And in that's where you have time. When you recognize those spaces, then you can do the intention setting, the, understanding what your goals are for it, and then the presence, getting out of the programs, as Jared said very beautifully. Thank you, Jared.
What's up in your life, Dean?
What's up in my life?
Yeah.
She willikers. I am still looking at this model of nonprofit work and coaching work, and seeing and trying to figure out what that mishmash looks like and how that changes over time. It's not clear to me, but I can look at where my energy is and it's becoming clearer. But what that ends up looking like, I don't know. And I'm not really worried about it, but that's been a little bit of where this is. Going through some financial things, needing to get back to loving money a little bit better. I have somebody that decided they're not going to pay me for 2 months worth of work. And actually they were contractually supposed to pay me for all 3 months once they started that. And I did 2 months of the actual work, but so they owe me for 3 months but I actually worked for 2. And the biggest issue I have with it is it keeps freaking rattling around in my brain, and I need to let it go. Like, this is the thing, like, I need to put, I'm not going to sue them. I'm not going to badmouth. Like, I have some sway in this area. Should they want to, like, I supported their admin, and their third really good admin quit inside of a year. And I provided them solutions and worked double the contract. I'm not going to tell you my ego stories. Well, I just did. But, and I'm not going to, there's no retribution here, but I would like to say, hey, at least tell me you're not going to do it. Like, we talked about it and they did nothing. And I just need to put it away. I need to put it away in a nice box and move on. They're the second, in running my businesses, they're the second person ever to just decide not to pay me for my work. And I'm very appreciative that there were only 2. The other person was for $30,000. And I think I sort of dealt with it better just because they're just not very nice. That was the extent of me getting upset. They're just not good people, and they get to be not good people. And this is a better thing in the long run. This one is, for some reason, it's for a lot less money, and just sort of yanks at me a little bit more, partially because I really bought into that org and kind of did double the work on my ticket. They don't owe me a dime, but I see this is important. They have big problems. I can fix them, and came to a whole solution with them. And then they just shut the whole thing down. But actually recognized this as the solution, asked me for a scope of work. And I think they took it to their boss and it was shut down, and then decided it doesn't matter. So anyway, that's what's new with me.
I wonder what's the process of getting into that situation? Like, did you feel like in retrospective, did you feel any bad vibes about this job or working with them? Or you were like all heart and like just wanting to help, and then and it's why it's so shocking. You just like, you gave yourself so much with all your heart. And
hi, Elena.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Elena's coming in quietly. Hey, Elena. Hi. How are you?
You're not going to escape though.
We missed you.
That was the bang of Elena's entrance.
Doesn't she have? Where's her intro music?
But I feel Dean is using it to escape his thing.
Oh, okay. All right. I have known about this client. I've known about this organization for years, have sort of seen them as a possible client of mine for probably 10 years. And I know about the leadership there. And I know how that leadership works. And I've seen the revolving door of staff and struggle and whatever, and have a good feel. I could describe, I've never met this woman, but I think I could describe her modality. They have chosen very expensive solutions and support solutions that they don't need, but then won't do anything else because we spent all this money on this thing and just won't change that. And see, now it's that sunk cost fallacy that everybody holds on to. And this is the second stint of this kind of work that I've done with them. I did the first stint and 2 people quit and we ended. Did a second stint when they got another person, and then provided a solution and say, hey, this is what's causing your problem. This is what you need to do. And originally the person I'm working with the admin, but the person who hired me said, yes, let's do this. And then they're the person that decided not to pay me. So I understand that the leadership there basically rides roughshod on everybody else and drive. So I knew of that potential, I suppose. But the admin I'm working was all of 3 of them were all awesome, and I wanted to support them and make their lives better. But I also bought into the org, and okay, it doesn't always work out.
Risk. It seems like you took the risk to maybe get bigger reward to work with them finally, and it didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the work. And if it ended before, and if it needs to end now, that's fine. I just to have someone look at you and say, yeah, you did the work, we're not paying you, is, I don't know how you get to that place. But I think she's worried about her job, right? Because her boss doesn't allow that sort of thing. We're going to do it. I don't think she really cares about the solution. It's just, we're not changing solutions, really, right? Like, it's just, that's not something she wants to deal with. So it is. And it's unfortunate because I feel bad for the people working there. And it could, a better solution is not difficult to get to. But you can't, just like this work, right? Somebody has to want to change.
Yeah, you cannot help someone that doesn't want to help themselves.
Yeah, and I've got 2 out of the 3 people wanting to change, but the important one isn't the one I have access to, and they're not filtering in a way that it happens. And so as I said, I totally get that. And I was totally fine with it before. I'm totally fine with that now. But to just decide that, I don't get to that place. So, but I'm trying to let go.
Isn't it amazing, Dean, that you are expansive enough that you can go through this experience?
Yes.
I find that impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And so I'm trying to still love them.
Try.
No try. Do. Elena, where are your big headphones and all your cicadas?
I don't know, Jared. It's so fun to come in here late and so to just catch the energy. I don't even know what you're talking about, right? I hear, Dean, that you're in a process that's challenging you into an even better version of yourself. And Jared, I just love that reflection that came in, like it's the celebration, right? Like how powerful Dean is. He's always expanding. He's expansive enough to be able to go through this experience. Like just
a great way.
It's always such a great reminder, just connecting with you all. We're out at the coast. I have my headphones, but I wanted to try to connect with you all without them because there's no cicadas. And so I don't need something to block out all the noise for me. Yeah.
So you and Miro are both on coastlines today.
Yeah, Miro got out. I don't know what prompted that, but it's so fun how he was asking, like, could you send some noise? I'm in the city, send the noise, the sounds of nature. And now he's out there taking it in. Like, talk about inspired action.
Way to go. Way to go, Miro. Yeah, he was here for a while and we sort of laughed that he got disconnected.
I mean, for 1 minute, maybe he was here.
Yeah, perfect. There's we're staying in a gated community type place right now, random opportunity for us. And there's these promotional flag things out in the front, that say, come live in, it can be, residencies if you want them to be, and come live here where we, and each flag says something, where we laugh, where we love, where we play. And one of them says, where we disconnect. And it has been such a mind F for me, like, because I'm like, yes, like if you're talking about disconnect in terms of like where we unplug, right? But we're in a place that's like kind of plugged in for Costa Rica, right? It's like more, like Americanized than any other place I've been in, right? And so I'm like, oh, where we disconnect, fascinating. Right? Like every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, like I have to work too hard to enjoy that one, because I'm like, I don't know, what are we disconnecting from and what are we plugging into here? I'm not sure. But anyway, good for Miro. I'm glad he was able to disconnect, and I know him, so I know he's off connecting in a really powerful way.
Really awesome way.
Well, I want updates. I want to hear what's the gold coming through you or today.
Gail provided all the gold, so ask her.
What? I don't know. We had some discussion about the organization, and somehow Dean should work for Kindle because he kind of sold me to get a Kindle myself. Yeah, like how when we read, there's different type of reading. They're just for pleasure, but then for studying. And when you're in the studying mode, taking notes when you highlights on normal books is really hard. And so the Kindle can provide like added way to process the information and to connect it to the database. So this was pretty interesting, and I'll definitely look more into this.
And just to jump on that just a little bit, is that even the, to me, I discovered the part that I was missing is, I got highlighters on different floors. I got little packets of them and the little flaggy bits all, dotted around the house so I could stick them in books. And I was never doing anything with it. It never created anything particular, right? And so to me, there was this next step of processing those. And they're very difficult to do when they are sort of analog, let's say. And so the thing that I will share with you next week is a way to get those highlights into a space where I can process them, connect them, bring them, just embody them and, do that, take that next step with them that I was missing out. And so that's what we were talking about.
Dean, does all of that work retroactively? Like if I have notes in Kindle stuff now, it will transfer over? Unbelievable.
Mhm.
Unbelievable. And is that thing that you have, is it searchable?
Mhm. It's a database.
Oh my gosh.
A second external brain.
Oh, and you know what? People use this database and they call it building a second brain. Right? It's people sell it like, oh, here's my template to build a second brain. And I've sort of taken the bits and pieces and worked it the way it works for me. And I'm still building it. But one of the things I was thanking Jared, and I will thank you as well, is that it gave me the opportunity to go connect. Like I kind of went a little bit deeper into this. And I think probably there will be more tipping points, but I've got enough resources in there now and enough sort of notes and entries and some creation stuff. And creation is the newest thing I'm doing in it. But where I was taking Neville Goddard and linking them all up, right? And the Stoics to journaling, and oh, here's the Stoic journaling, and linking it to Stoicism and journaling. And so now when I go to journaling, I can see this thing, and then I go to Stoics, I can see it, and then it just all becomes sort of a web of freaking magical, powerful unicorn feed.
Love it. It's like hay for the soul. I can't wait. Thank you for offering this up to us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's
Super.
it's not totally zen, but it's cool.
I don't think I will be there next week. So can you record it when you guys talk about it, and I will watch the class after that.
Can do that. I'm also happy to do one just extra special for you, Gail, if you'd like.
Well, I don't want. I mean,
You can watch the recording. That's fine. You don't need to.
I can just follow. Yeah.
What was that noise?
A quiet entry.
Mhm. Well, Lena, bring up a subject if you feel like
Hmm. Well, what's been on my mind lately, because of the place that we're in, I'm having some really profound insights into myself. In I think a kind of a fun, playful sort of way. I feel like I've noticed I've been working with women in this really intimate way for a decade, right? And I have just noticed wow, if you ask a woman what she really wants, right? She or me, we will go oftentimes just blank faced, right? Almost look like a deer in headlights. We've just been stunned by something, right? Because often we weren't encouraged to think that way in terms of what we want and what we really want, right? So I've been aware of that for a long time. And I feel like over the course of, me growing up, I'm getting more and more clear insight into what I really want, what I desire, what really lights me up. And that we're having this really exceptional experience right now where my parents being here, we're just creating all these unique opportunities, right? To explore Costa Rica together and have different types of experiences. And so one night we ended up staying in a very almost rundown sort of Tico, Costa Rican motel type place, right? So old, not updated. There was tons of leaves in the pool. Wasn't even sure if it was a functioning pool for the girls to swim in at first. And we just love all types of experiences. So we go and we have that experience, right? And it's great. And I'm practicing Spanish with the women that work there, and we're all crying when we're leaving because we don't want to leave them. Just beautiful, right? And then we go from that to coming into this double gated, highly manicured, pristine to some people's eyes community. And it's so cool. It's so fun, right? It's a big condo and it's got, we tell my parents they're off in the West Wing sort of a thing, and like super cool in a completely different way. And while I appreciate that we're having this opportunity, I want nothing to do with it. And I have zero judgment. Like in the past, I think I would have had to feel like, oh, well, it's bad to want this. And this is so wasteful. And this is this, and this is that. And it's not bad. It's beautiful. And the people here are beautiful. I just don't thrive. I'm not walking around feeling lit up and like in my own flow. Yet when we're walking barefoot on the gravel road that's not taken care of at all, and there's trees to go underneath in order to get out to the beach, leaving the Tico place, I feel completely alive. And it's been so fun to be like, oh, I'm not just striving to have like permission to be able to live in a luxurious place. Like I can if I want, but now all of a sudden I have this clarity of like, I don't know if this is making any sense, but it's just like, oh, like I'm totally free to dream and desire and have anything, right? And it also gets to come from a place of true desire and what connects me to, like we've been talking about, just like being in flow and fully connected to source. Like it feels a little surprising. Like the thing that in my mind is supposed to have me feeling that way completely doesn't. And without judgment of that, something else that doesn't fit the bill of what it's supposed to be completely does. I've had a few of those experiences over the course of the last couple of weeks with all the stuff that we've been doing. And it's just been fascinating to me. I'm like, wow. Like yesterday, we were out on this old beat down ship that was built in 1947. A couple of weeks ago, we were on a pristine wooden schooner, all of the bells and whistles to it. And we were on the thing yesterday, sitting on bean bags, all lined up. It's kind of filthy. Jacques asked me why I went down into the lower part with the girls to go to the bathroom. He's like, what's it like down there? And I was like, oh, it reminds me of like my friends, like frat boy college dorm rooms down there. And I loved every second of it. I'm like, I so prefer to be right here. And it's just like, something in my mind says that's not what I'm supposed to be really so excited about. Like it's supposed to be the other thing, and they're both great and they're both beautiful and both of them super fun. But I just felt a different type of aliveness yesterday with it. So that's my update, y'all.
I love how the discernment of, it's just this place is okay, but it's just the other light me up. And this like way of expressing it's light me up. Sometimes we're in an environment that is just like supposedly awesome, but we have a hard time to discern, is it my type of awesome? Does it light me up? And it's why traveling is so important, because it's how you really like are getting warmer or colder to your true self. Like, oh no, it's a little too cold. Like, oh no. And it's where we can really find ourselves, because maybe 10 years ago it would have been different for you, but we always evolve. And when we find that, it's just like, yeah, this is really what I like. I love it.
And that's what we've been talking about all day on this call. I mean, to use Jared's phrase from a couple of calls ago, the good is taking the place of the great. It's taken up space for it, or however, paraphrasing Jared, I'm sorry, I butchered that. But, you know, we were talking about coaching from, you know, providing tools or whatever versus being in the flow of it. Tools are good. In the flow of it's great, right? Like, I mean, to me, that's like the juicy bits. That's where it's like, how do you describe it, right? You're making that connection that's indescribable. It's that magical space that is just, you know, better than great. And I just so appreciate hearing how you like all the slummy bits and then like to hang out with us as well. I'm not connecting those at all.
Hey. You light me up.
I feel at home.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Gail, I love your reference to the hot cold game. That's so perfect. Warmer, colder, going away from it. Warmer, hot. Ding, ding,
The only way to figure it out is to travel, to experience different things, because you might be in the okay, warm area, but you never touch onto the juicy, super hot, like where you flowing and you feel like super empowered in a way. Like there's those moments when you travel and you're just living through an adventure and you're feeling really super empowered because you're in your element. And when at home you create something that is, it's okay, but it's maybe not sustaining your full empowerment.
I spent decades mired in okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad enough to change and it wasn't good enough to really enjoy. And you become numb. You become numb. You don't even realize what you don't have at that point. It's been so long since you tasted that. I mean, it's the dish of Struggleville, right? Like it's the town dish is just okay. And it's, you know, Elena, thank you for the reminder and sharing it so beautifully. I mean, I made a joke, but it really is, you know, it's, and if we look back, whether it's with our parents or those special places in our lives, they're all simple. There's none of them are this big, huge, complex thing. They're just all simple, just easy wins. So
and it's de-socializing ourselves. It's realizing that our social self, the way we were brought to this world, like maybe we should be thinking that the really fancy place is the one that we want to live in or we're thriving in. But actually, no, a natural self is just thriving into the chaos, maybe, or the really, yeah. Cool.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, buddy.
I wanted to show you where I took the call from. It's just been very comfy listening to these amazing conversations as usual, just from the comfort of my couch. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for sharing
Thanks for being here. We like you better than Miro now.
Yes.
All right, I'll try not to mess up this recording.
And I won't be there next week, unfortunately. I'm in a trade show in California.
We'll have a high flow, high vibe time, Gail.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Love you guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.